Good morning, children. Today we'll start with the second chapter of biology, that is chapter 7, related to control and coordination. In chapter, while discussing life processes, we have seen that organism is made up of tissues, organelles, cells, organ system, and finally it leads to organisms. Right? So organisms are various organ systems, tissues, everything. And how it functions. All these different uh, components of organism, how it is controlled and how it is coordinated each other for the survival of organisms. So based on that, definition of coordination, how will we put the definition of coordination? It means body and tissues, organs, everything work together to perform their functions and at a correct speed and in correct sequence. Everything should be correct at a proper time and proper sequence, one after the other, to fulfill the needs of the body. To survive, everything should be coordinated at a particular time, speed, and it should be in a particular sequence. That is called coordination. For example, I'll give you one example. ಏನಂದ್ರೆ ಈಗ ಕಾರಲ್ಲಿ ಹೋಗ್ತಾ ಇರ್ತೀವಿ, ಪಕ್ಕದಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾರೋ ಕೂತಿರ್ತಾರೆ, ಅವ್ರ ಜೊತೆ ಮಾತಾಡ್ತಾ ಇರ್ತೀವಿ, ಅವ್ರು ಹೇಳೋದನ್ನು ಕೇಳಿಸ್ಕೊತಾ ಇರ್ತೀವಿ. Okay, our ears will be functioning, our eyes will be functioning on the road, and we'll be talking, engaged in talking. Suddenly ಏನಾದರೂ ಒಂದು ಪ್ರಾಣಿನೋ ಅಥವಾ ಒಂದು ಏನೋ ಒಬ್ಬ ಮನುಷ್ಯನ ಯಾರು ಅಡ್ಡ ಬಂದರೆ, what will you do? Simultaneously we apply brake with the hands and clutch with the leg. We'll press the clutch with the leg. At the same time person will be talking, oh ನಿಲ್ಸು ನಿಲ್ಸು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಇರ್ತಾರೆ, ಅದನ್ನೂ ಕೇಳಿಸ್ಕೊತೀವಿ. Everything happens at a ಕರೆಕ್ಟ್ ಟೈಮ್, ಒಟ್ಟಿಗೆ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಎಲ್ಲ ಕೈಯಲ್ಲಿ ಬ್ರೇಕ್ ಹಾಕ್ತೀವಿ, ಕಾಲಲ್ಲಿ ಕ್ಲಚ್ ಹೊತ್ತೀವಿ, ಪಕ್ಕದಲ್ಲಿ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ ಹುಷಾರು ಹುಷಾರು ಅಂತ ಕೇಳಿಸ್ಕೋತೀವಿ. ಅಟ್ ದ ಸೇಮ್ ಟೈಮ್ ವಿಲ್ ಬಿ ಲುಕಿಂಗ್ ಥ್ರೂ ದ ಐಸ್, ಎದುರುಗೆ ಏನಾಗ್ತಿದೆ, ಯಾರು ಬರ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ ಅಂತ ಅದನ್ನು ನೋಡ್ತೀವಿ. ಎವ್ರಿಥಿಂಗ್ ಹ್ಯಾಪನ್ಸ್ ಅಟ್ ದ ರೈಟ್ ಟೈಮ್ ಬಿಕಾಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಕೋಆರ್ಡಿನೇಷನ್. ಕೋಆರ್ಡಿನೇಷನ್ ಇಲ್ಲ ಅಂತಿದ್ರೆ ಎಲ್ಲ ಮಿಸ್ಅಪ್ ಆಗ್ಬಿಡ್ತಾ ಇತ್ತು, ಹೌದಾ? ಸೊ coordination is so important and everything should be controlled. ಹೆಂಗಿಗೋ ಕೋಆರ್ಡಿನೇಟ್ ಆಗಕ್ಕೆ ಸಾಧ್ಯ ಇಲ್ಲ, ಆ ಕೋಆರ್ಡಿನೇಷನ್ ಕಂಟ್ರೋಲ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇರಬೇಕು. ದಟ್ಸ್ ದ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆನ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಕೋಆರ್ಡಿನೇಷನ್. Now we'll see how coordination happens in unicellular organisms. Unicellular organism, we know it contains one single cell. Within the cell, organelles control and coordinate all the activities within the single cell itself. Okay. Excuse me. Whereas in multicellular organisms like we human beings and animals, there are two kinds of coordination. One is nervous coordination, happens by nervous system. Okay. Nervous system includes organs like brain, spinal cord, sense organs, and muscles. It includes 4 organs: brain, spinal cord, sense organs, and muscles. Second type of coordination is chemical coordination. That is endocrinal system. Performed by endocrinal system, it releases the secretion of hormones. It is also called hormonal system. Don't think either of the one is okay. We require both type of coordination. Both nervous and chemical coordination are required for multicellular organisms. Today we will see nervous coordination, how coordination of the nervous system happens in our body. Before starting the nervous system, let us understand the terminologies that we use in this today's chapter. First is stimulus. Stimulus ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಏನು? Any change in the environment, either internal or external environment of an organism, which results in the change or movement in our body. Any change. ಈಗ ಚಳಿ ಆಯಿತು ಅಂದರೆ ಒದ್ಕೋತೀವಿ, ಶೆಕೆ ಆಯಿತು ಅಂದರೆ ಫ್ಯಾನ್ ಹಾಕೋತೀವಿ. ದಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಎ ಶೆಕೆ, ಚಳಿ, ಇಟ್ಸ್ ಎ ಚೇಂಜ್ ಇನ್ ದ ಎನ್ವಿರಾನ್ಮೆಂಟ್. ದಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಎ ಸ್ಟಿಮ್ಯುಲಸ್. ಓಕೆ. ಅಥವಾ ಸೌಂಡ್, ಯಾವುದೋ ಒಂದು ಚಿತ್ರ, ಸ್ಮೆಲ್, that will become a stimulus. Due to the stimulus, we respond. That is called response. Because of the stimulus, there will be a change in the behavior of an organism. Normal change kanutte behavioral due to stimulus. That is called response. For example, chali aitu, that is a stimulus. What will you do? We'll put a blanket. That is a response for that stimulus. Athwa movement, closing of ears and nose for sound. Ketta sound bandre, we'll close our ears. Okay. Athwa ಒಳ್ಳೆ smell. Food. We'll enjoy the smell of the food through our nose. That is a response that we give for the stimulus. Third is impulse. What makes us to respond? Stimulus. Connection between stimulus and response is called impulse. Impulse ಅಂದ್ರೆ stimulus ಬಂದಾಗ the message will be passed through nervous system to respond. That passing of message is called impulse. That message itself will become an impulse. Now, receptors. Receptors ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಏನು? Stimulus na receive ಮಾಡೋ organs are called receptors. For example, ದೊಡ್ಡ ಸೌಂಡ್ ಬರುತ್ತೆ. ಸೌಂಡ್ ಬಂದಾಗ ಕಿವಿ ಮುಚ್ಕೊಳ್ಳೋದು. ಕಿವಿ ಸೌಂಡ್ ಕಿವಿ. Ears will become the receptors for sound. Okay, for taste, tongue will become the receptors. For sights, ನೋಡೋದಕ್ಕೆ our eyes will become the receptors, receiving organs. Okay, and effectors. Effectors ಅಂದ್ರೆ after receiving, how the movement takes place. ಎಲ್ಲಿ movement ಆಗುತ್ತೆ, which organ is made to respond. That is the effectors. Usually in nervous system and most of the entire nervous system, muscles will be the effectors because they receive impulse from the brain and helps to respond. Action agakke muscles will help to take action for each stimulus. So these are called effectors. Stimulus, response, stimulus idre response agutte. Response yavagutte when there is a message passed from stimulus and between receptors and effectors message pass adre we'll get a response. That message is called impulse. Okay. After knowing these basic terminologies, we'll look into the classification of nervous system. Nervous system usually classified into two types: central nervous system and peripheral nervous system. Central nervous system, it includes brain and spinal cord. Whereas peripheral nervous system, it includes, there are two types of peripheral nervous system. One is somatic nervous system, which arises from the, which has a cranial nerves, which arises from the brain. Whereas autonomic nervous system, it has spinal nerves, nerves that arise from the spinal cord. Okay. If central nervous system performs voluntary actions, peripheral nervous system performs involuntary actions. The details will see. Don't get confused. Both in central nervous system and peripheral nervous system, there is brain and spinal cord. Here also they have nerves arising from brain and spinal cord. Let us go into the detail in the next slides. To start with, we'll see what is nervous system. This is a neuron. Neuron is a structural and functional unit, basic unit of nervous system. Without neurons, there's no nervous system. Okay. This is a structure of neuron. It is a structural and functional unit of nervous system. It has a cell body within which nucleus is there. All organelles, like any other cell, is also present within the cell. And the cytoplasm, they are projected into air-like structures called dendrites. These are a projection of cytoplasm, air-like structures. These are called dendrites. This is a cell body. This dendrites receives the stimulus. And after the cell body, extensions, tail-like structures is there at the end of the cell body. It is a long tail-like structure which ends with the nerve terminals, axon terminals ಅಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ ಅಥವಾ nerve endings, branched nerve endings. Okay, this tail-like structure called axon is protected by myelin sheath. Myelin sheath irutte, it protects the axons. Okay, this is a nerve ending, and based on this there are different types of neurons: sensory neuron, motor neuron, and association neuron. What is sensory neuron? Sensory neurons convey nerve impulse from the receptors. Receptors in the brain ಗೆ impulse na pass ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ. So these are sensory neurons. Motor neurons carry impulse from brain to effectors, muscle cells ಗೆ carry impulse from the brain ಅಥವಾ main nervous system to the effectors. Connecting neurons, and these are the neurons that connect sensory and motor neurons. Sensory motor neurons na connect ಮಾಡೋದಕ್ಕೆ connecting neurons ಅಂತ ಕರೀತಾರೆ. That is present in both brain and spinal cord. We'll see in the next slide how it is connected. Finally, bundle of neurons or nerve fibers group together to form a nerve. This is a nerve in which many axons are there, many neurons are present. This is a nerve. So in this also there are different types of nerves called sensory nerves, motor nerves, and mixed nerves. Sensory nerves, it has only sensory neurons which carry information from message from receptors to brain. Whereas motor nerves, it has only motor neurons which carry message from brain or spinal cord to the effectors. Okay. The third type of nerves is mixed nerves. It has both sensory and motor neurons. Okay. These group of neurons form the nervous system. This is a nervous system that is present in our body. Okay. At the top of the nervous top, it has a brain, and the spinal cord runs from below the brain till the end of the vertebral column. Vertebral column end agovarge spinal cord runs. This red one is the spinal cord, whereas covering is the vertebral column. Okay. Brain also has nerves called cranial nerves, and the nerves emerging from the spinal cord are called spinal nerves. Here, brain and spinal cord, part of the spinal cord, not entire spinal cord, brain and part of the spinal cord form the central nervous system, whereas remaining things forms the peripheral nervous system. Earlier we saw two types of nervous system. This is the central nervous system, and the remaining portion from ear till ear, it is a peripheral nervous system. Okay. Now, after knowing this, then neuron is a fundamental unit. Bundle of neurons form the nerve, and these nerves form a nervous system. Okay. Now let us see how messages is passed from one neuron to another. In neurons, the dendrites, these are the cytoplasmic projections that reach the finest tip of the body. If hands bandre, tip of the nerve endings. These nerve endings are called the dendrites that reaches to the tip of the every corner or finest part of the body, which conducts nerve impulse to the cell body, and it receives the stimulus. Dendrites are the one which receives the stimulus from the environment, and the message enters the cell body in the form of electrical charges. So it is called electrical impulse. In the form of electrical impulse from the dendrite, it reaches the cell body and it passes through the axon till the nerve ending. nerve ending of one axon is connected to the dendrite of the second neuron. Okay, but these two are not connected. They are placed closely to one another, but they are not connected. There is a small gap in between one neuron to another neuron. This small gap is called synapse. Okay, axon terminals or nerve endings are closely placed to the next dendrites of the next neuron, but there is a gap between two neurons. This is called synapse. What happens to the message? The impulse will be in the electrical form in this neuron, and in the gap, the electrical impulse get converted to chemical form. Chemical form ಗೆ convert ಆಗುತ್ತೆ ಈ gap ಅಲ್ಲಿ. Then it enters the dendrites of the second neuron. Here, chemical impulse gets again converted back to electrical form, and it moves to the same way it moves to the brain or spinal cord. And from spinal cord to brain to the effectors, impulse moves in the same way. So, in the neurons, message is passed in the form of electrochemical form. Electrochemical impulse formally, message is passed from one neuron to another. Okay. So, after knowing the movement of impulse in the neurons, let us see what is the function of neurons. Usually, it carries impulse from the receptors to the brain and or spinal cord. Environment in the burrow in message, na, it carries from receptors to brain or spinal cord. Secondly, it brings back the message from brain or spinal cord to effectors, right? So it coordinates. Neurons also coordinate between brain and spinal cord to other organs. ಈಗ ಸೆನ್ಸ್ ಆರ್ಗನ್ಸ್ಗಾಗಲಿ ಅಥವಾ ಹ್ಯಾಂಡ್ಸ್ ಅಥವಾ ಲೆಗ್ಸಿಗಾಗಲಿ it coordinates the message from brain to other organs. These are the two functions of the neurons. Now, after knowing the functions of neuron, now let us study the central nervous system, which is the first part of the nervous system. We know central nervous system, it includes brain and spinal cord. Only portion of the spinal cord below the brain, that forms the central nervous system. To know how it functions, first we have to know the structure of the brain. Brain is the important organ and largest organ of the body. It is the size of the brain is proportional to our body size. Okay, and it is very delicate organ. It's very important to protect it. How our body is framed to protect the brain. See the structure of this brain. Outside we have the skin, outer layer is the skin, and within that layer we have a bony structure called skull. Brooded. It will be very hard. That is skull. Below the skull there are 3 layers of membrane. Okay. Each layer is separated by a fluid called cerebrospinal fluid. ಈ 3 layer of membrane ಮಧ್ಯ ಒಂದು fluids ಬರುತ್ತೆ, flow ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. And also within the membrane, 3 membranes ಒಳಗೂ cerebrospinal fluid will be filled. Within that cerebrospinal fluid, this entire brain will be suspended, and the brain will be floating in this and it don't think there is enough space to float. Within that space, it will be floating in the cerebrospinal fluid. Fix ಆಗಿರಲ್ಲ brain. ಯಾಕೆ ಅಂದರೆ ಟು ಅವಾಯ್ಡ್ ಜರ್ಕ್ಸ್, ಅಕಸ್ಮಾತ್ ಆಕ್ಸಿಡೆಂಟ್ ಆಗಿ ಏನೋ ಹೊಡ್ಕೊಂಡಾಗ ಬ್ರೈನ್ ಶುಡ್ ನಾಟ್ ಗೆಟ್ ಡ್ಯಾಮೇಜ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಇಟ್ ಶುಡ್ ನಾಟ್ ಗೆಟ್ ಶಾರ್ಟ್. ಸೊ ಇಟ್ ವಿಲ್ ಬಿ ಸಸ್ಪೆಂಡೆಡ್ ಇನ್ ದ cerebrospinal fluid ಅಂತ ಅದರೊಳಗೆ ಸಸ್ಪೆಂಡ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. This is a protection that is body gives to the brain because since it's a sensitive and important organ. Now let us see the classification of brain. How brain is classified. Usually it is classified into 3 types: forebrain, midbrain, and hindbrain. See, this is the forebrain. Entire part of this is forebrain. It is a convoluted, it is a fragmented. It's the largest part of the brain, that is forebrain. Okay. Next, this part is called cerebrum. Forebrainally, cerebrum forms the forebrain, which is the largest part of the brain. And next, in the middle, this is a midbrain, tube-like structures, which has a hypothalamus and pituitary gland is present in the midbrain. Whereas the hindbrain, this part at the base of the forebrain, at the cerebrum, it is a cerebellum. This is a pons and the medulla oblongata. Pons, medulla oblongata, and cerebellum forms the hindbrain. It is at the base of the brain. Now let us see what is the functions of these parts of the forebrain, midbrain, and hindbrain. Here we can see the functions of the brain to various we saw forebrain is the biggest part and it is attached to so many functions. Like mainly, this is the largest part which involves in thinking. Yoshne Madadrali, it is involved. Before taking any decisions, the actions which require thinking is done by this part. And also it saves a memory. For example, son makkaliruvaga hodiddu, kelidu, will remember till our later stages. That will be stored. That information will be stored here in the form of memory. ಅಥವಾ ಯಾರನ್ನೋ ನೋಡಿರ್ತೀವಿ ಎಷ್ಟೋ ವರ್ಷಗಳಾದ್ಮೇಲೆ ಮತ್ತೆ ನೆನಪಿಸ್ಕೋತೀವಿ because that information is stored in this region as a memory. Okay. This region also has a receptors for smell and taste. Smell madak, these are too closely attached, smell and taste. So sometimes when we have cold, we don't get the taste. Cold irvaga taste ಗೊತ್ತಾಗಲ್ಲ because they overlap each other. Though they are close, they'll overlap each other. Taste buds get masked. ಎಲ್ಲ ಬ್ಲಾಕ್ ಆಗ್ಬಿಡುತ್ತೆ. So we don't feel the taste when we have a cold. Okay. Similarly, next part, it is speech and the language. How is speech? Sense of language is placed here and sense of touch also. ಈಗ ಮುಟ್ಟಿದ್ರೆ ಸಾಫ್ಟ್ ಹಾರ್ಡ್ ಅಥವಾ kind of touch is also placed here. Now coming to the back of the brain, here visual processing and the images. Now noted the images form agodu here at the back of the brain. This is the part where vision is processed, vision related information is processed. Similar, this is in the midbrain. And here important thing, ಕೇಳಿಸ್ಕೊಳ್ಳೋದು, hearing and learning the new things or controlling emotions. This part of the brain deals with hearing and learning as well as controlling emotions. This is a part of the forebrain. This yellow and green is a midbrain. Visual and hearing happens by midbrain. Now the last hindbrain, which contains cerebellum and medulla oblongata. What does cerebellum? This is a cerebrum. This is a cerebellum which deals with body balance and muscular activity. Body na balance, posture. ನಾವು ಹಿಂಗೆ ಸ್ಟ್ರೈಟ್ ಆಗಿ ನಿಂತ್ಕೋತೀವ, ಹಿಂಗೋ ಕೂತ್ಕೋತೀವ. That posture is controlled by muscles by this cerebellum. Okay. For example, if people who are drunk, who have taken much alcohol, they walk glimpsy. They don't walk straight. That is because when we take alcohol, the cerebellum does not process the information and muscle activity cannot be controlled. There is no coordination between brain and muscles. So they walk in a imbalanced way. Okay. The last part of the brain, that is medulla oblongata, it helps in breathing, internal. It relates to the control of internal organs like heart rate, heart functioning, breathing, respiration, and digestion, alimentary canal. And also it maintains the temperature of the body. Now you know how important the brain is by seeing all the functions of the brain. All the sense organs are related to the forebrain and midbrain. Whereas body balance, body posture is controlled by the hindbrain, that is cerebellum, and medulla oblongata, it related to the internal organs, function of the internal organs of our body. Okay, that's what here I have written. Midbrain, visual and hearing. Cerebellum coordinates muscular activity and balance of the body. Controls muscular, this what balance ಮಾಡಕ್ಕೆ ಹೇಳ್ಕೊಡುತ್ತೆ. Whereas medulla oblongata controls activities of the internal organs like heartbeat, digestion, respiration, all this. Now, after knowing this brain and spinal cord, now let us see how I have told earlier, central nervous system which contains brain and spinal cord are involved in performing voluntary actions. Now we'll see what are voluntary actions. These actions are controlled by brain, as we have seen. So it is controlled by brain. And here it makes us to think before performing any function. It makes us to think, should I do? And if so, how? ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾ, ಮಾಡೋದಾದ್ರೆ ಹೆಂಗೆ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು? ಆ thinking, it involves thinking. Based on that thinking, actions are done. ಫಾರ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ ಬೈಸಿಕಲ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ, ರೈಡ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು, ಹೆಂಗೆ ರೈಡ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು? ವಿಲ್ ಥಿಂಕ್ ಅಂಡ್ ವಿಲ್ ಲರ್ನ್ ಹೌ ಟು ರೈಡ್ ಅ ಬೈಸಿಕಲ್. ಸಡನ್ ಆಗಿ ಎಲ್ಲ ಆಗಲ್ಲ. ವಿ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಟು ಥಿಂಕ್ ಅಂಡ್ ವಿ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಟು ಲರ್ನ್ ಟು ರೈಡ್ ಅ ಬೈಸಿಕಲ್. ಸಿಮಿಲರ್ಲಿ ಡ್ಯಾನ್ಸಿಂಗ್, ವಾಕಿಂಗ್ ಆಲ್ಸೋ, ಫ್ರಮ್ ಮಗು ಇದ್ದಾಗಿಂದ ಹೆಂಗ್ ನಡೆಯೋದು ಅಂತ ವಿಲ್ ಲರ್ನ್. ಸ್ವಿಚಿಂಗ್ ಆನ್ ಟಿವಿ, ಕೂತಿರ್ತೀವಿ, ಸ್ವಿಚಿಂಗ್ ಆನ್ ಟಿವಿ ಆಲ್ಸೋ ವಿ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಟು ಥಿಂಕ್, ಶುಡ್ ಐ ವಾಚ್ ಟಿವಿ? ಇಫ್ ಯೆಸ್, ಗೆಟ್ ಅಪ್, take the remote, apply, then only we'll switch on the TV. Okay. To function the voluntary actions, we have a receptors or sense organs. For example, sound. If we want to respond to a sound, there is a phonoreceptors in the inner ears. Inner ears or the phonoreceptors on the sound related again. If we want to see something, there are photoreceptors in our eyes, visual stimulus. Similarly, touch, pain athwa bisi muttadike, our skin acts as a receptors. These are called thermoreceptors. And smell related detection, we have olfactory detectors in our nose, receptors in our nose. So it helps in smell detection. And gustatory receptors, and this is related to taste, how taste happens. For this, we'll see the receptors, how in our tongue, nalge tudiyalli, we'll see sweet taste is felt by the tongue, tip of the tongue. And next to it, salt, uppu idella illi detect agutte. Uli, acids, and sour taste is at the next of the to salt. At the back of our tongue, bitterness, kahi at the back of our nose. These are the receptors present in the tongue, which helps in detection of the taste of the food. Okay, so these receptors are called gustatory receptors, that is present in the tongue. Now let us see how our brain works to perform voluntary action. This is one example to show visual action, visual stimulus. There's a cup of water. This cup of water acts as a stimulus, and that is received by the eyes. The receptors present at the eyes sees the stimulus, and that message is passed through the dendrites of the sensory neuron attached to the receptors of the eyes. It passes the message in the form of electrochemical impulse. We had seen it passes in the form of electrochemical information impulse through this sensory neuron, and reaches the brain. Eyes, alva, it reaches to the back of the brain because it is related to vision. Here, information get processed. Sensory neuron irutte, illi connecting neuron irutte, which takes the information, processes, and it passes the information message in the form of electrochemical impulse to the motor neuron. Motor neuron, it takes the information and gives to the muscles in the hand. Muscles ikkottaga, there will be change in the shape of the muscles, which helps to lift our hand and take the cup. Muscles ಬಂದಾಗ ನಾವು ಕೈ ತೆಗೆದು ಗ್ಲಾಸ್ ತಗೊಂಡು then we'll do drinking. This is how the stimulus happens. Okay, from muscles to from eyes to hand, it moves to the sensory neuron, brain, motor neuron, muscle, and response will be formed. So eyes are the receptors here, sensory neuron, brain receives, muscle is the effector here, and we'll see the response. Okay, this is the flow of voluntary actions. It involves thinking, should I take the cup? So brain is helping in thinking and performs the function. Similarly, for example, smell. If we see the food, we feel like eating, and smell sometimes it helps in eating. ಆಮೇಲೆ ಇಲ್ಲಿ it also helps. ಈಗ ಊಟ ನೋಡಿದ ತಕ್ಷಣ ಹಸಿವು ಆಗುತ್ತೆ, ಎಷ್ಟು ತಿನ್ನಬೇಕು, that also it's how much we should eat, how much we should drink, that also we have to think. Those are voluntary actions. Okay, that happens in the same way. Sense organs in the, this is the external environment, whereas how much we should eat, how much we should drink, those are internal environment within the body. When our body needs energy, we feel hungry. ಆವಾಗ stomach and wherever ಈಗ ಕೈಯಲ್ಲಿ ಶಕ್ತಿ ಇಲ್ಲ, ಸುಸ್ತಾಗುತ್ತೆ, that sends the information to the brain and we feel hungry and we start eating. Same messages will go to the hand, and with the hand we take the food and we'll eat. Okay, this is a help examples for voluntary actions. Now you know voluntary actions are the ones which involves thinking and will decide the whether we have to do it and not, and then actions will be taken, and we have seen examples also. Now let us see what peripheral nervous system will do. We saw central nervous system which does voluntary actions, whereas peripheral nervous system, it does involuntary actions, and then which does not require thinking. For example, in this there are two types we have seen. One is somatic nervous system and another is autonomic nervous system. Somatic nervous system andre, it involves the cranial nerves. These are the cranial nerves which arises from the brain. Brain in the baro nerves, starting nerves nella cranial nerves ante. These are linked to the internal organs. For example, heartbeat. Heartbeat should be continuous, it cannot be stopped, and it does not require thinking because it should happen throughout our life. Similarly, respiration, athwa excretion, digestion, everything should be continuous, it cannot be stopped. That is performed by somatic nervous system, but here nerves arises from the brain. Okay, don't think since nerve arises from the brain, it involves thinking. No, not all functions. The functions of the internal organs does not require thinking, but nerves arises, cranial nerves arises from the brain. Okay, whereas second one is autonomic nervous system. This is autonomic nervous system where nerves arises from the spinal cord. This controls the actions. These are called reflex actions, which does not require thinking, and it arises only from the spinal cord. Messages from the tip goes to the spinal cord. It processes and gives back the message to the muscles, and it performs the actions. From the spinal cord, it does not go to the brain. Okay, this is autonomic nervous system. For example, sweating. In the next slide, we'll see how peripheral nervous system is performed. This is a reflex actions. Peripheral nervous system performs either involuntary, it is also called reflex actions. Reflex action and involuntary actions are very quick and automatic. Okay, without knowing, without our consciousness, actions will be taken by the stimulus. Stimulus in the without our consciousness, these actions will be occurred due to actions controlled by the spinal cord. Example, ಫುಡ್ ನೋಡಿದ ತಕ್ಷಣ ಮೌತಲ್ಲಿ ಬಾಯಲ್ಲಿ ನೀರು ಬರುತ್ತೆ. ಅಂಡ್ ಇಫ್ ವಿ ಸ್ಮೆಲ್ ಆಲ್ಸೋ ಸಮ್ಟೈಮ್ಸ್ ವಿ ಫೀಲ್ ಬಜ್ಜಿ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ರೆ ತಿನ್ಬೇಕು ಅನ್ಸುತ್ತೆ. It does not involve thinking. That smell, sense itself will trigger the watery mouth. And sometimes ಕಣ್ಣಿಗೆ ಧೂಳು ಬಿದ್ದ ತಕ್ಷಣ ಕಣ್ಣೀರು ಬರುತ್ತೆ, ನೀರಲ್ಲಿ ಬರುತ್ತೆ. These are involuntary. Without our knowledge, these things will happen. ಆಮೇಲೆ ಕತ್ಲೆ ಮನೇಲಿ ಹೋದಾಗ our eyes adjust itself to that environment. And as we saw earlier, my internal organ function of the internal organs does not require to think. And cold air, shivering to cold, or breathing, sweating to hot, these are involuntary actions. And now there's one specific peculiar action that is called withdrawal of hand after touching a hot object. In this picture, we'll see this is a hot object. When we touch with the hand, the message is passed through sensory neurons as electrochemical impulse. It reaches the spinal cord. Here it gets processed, and this is a connecting neuron which connects sensory neuron and motor neuron. The processed information is passed through this motor neuron to the muscle in the hand, which helps us to remove the hand from the hot object. And then now ಮುಟ್ಟಿದ ತಕ್ಷಣ that message passes through the sensory neuron, goes to the spinal cord and comes back to the muscle, ear muscle. So we'll take out the hand. Okay, all these functions, passing of message to sensory neuron, processing in the spinal cord, and bringing the same message to the muscle, which make us to lift the hand from the object, happens in a fraction of the second. It takes only few seconds to perform the action. Here, this hot plate acts as a stimulus, hand acts as skin acts as the receptors, sensory neuron, motor neuron, muscles acts as the effectors, which performs the function. Thus, function is happening. This entire process is called reflex arc due to sense of touch. Just remember this picture. They might ask to label the parts of the reflex arc. To simplify, this is a function of the nervous system, both central nervous system and peripheral nervous system. To simplify in a pictorial form, this is a pathway how the nervous system functions. When there is a stimulus, either internal or external environment, from the internal environment, receptors receives the stimulus and it passes the information through sensory neuron as an electrochemical impulse and reaches brain or spinal cord. Here the information gets processed and it passes the information to motor neuron. Here also it passes in the form of electrochemical impulse and reaches the effectors, usually muscles. Whereas in eye cell matra, gland, because it secretes tears in our eyes. Most of the time effectors will be muscle, which leads to response. Okay, this is a simplified pathway of functioning of our nervous system. Okay, now after knowing all this, how it performs, nervous system, how it is important. Now let us see. Just we'll have a look how nervous system functions. We saw it collects the information, sends to a brainal cord, processes and makes a decision and sends to the muscles for action. What happens to the muscle? How it performs the function? When there is a nerve electric impulse reaches the muscle, now muscle ಒಳಗೆ protein ಇರುತ್ತೆ called myosin. These myosin present in the muscles, it changes the shape and arrangement. Okay. Because of the change in shape and arrangement of this protein, muscle gets contracted. In the muscle, it gets contracted and it becomes short, which helps to do the action. Okay. This is how muscle performs the action. Proteins will be there in the muscles, which results in the change in shape and arrangement. Due to that, there is a contraction in muscle and muscle gets shortened and action is done. Okay. After knowing all this, let us see the differences between voluntary actions and involuntary actions. Voluntary actions are performed by central nervous system. Involuntary actions are performed by peripheral nervous system. What are the difference between these two actions? We know this is voluntary, involuntary. It does not require thinking, whereas it requires thinking. It includes forebrain and midbrain, whereas involuntary it includes hindbrain and spinal cord. Hindbrain to perform functions in the internal organs. Spinal cord, it's a sense of touch, which does not actions that does not require thinking. We know it involves thinking. It is just by a sense. Okay. And how speed? It is little slow. Voluntary actions, since it requires thinking, speed of response is little slow. We take time to take action, whereas involuntary is very quick, very fast. There's no time to think at all, so it's very fast. And what are the effectors that are involved in the voluntary actions? Usually only muscles. Okay, and this involves muscle glands. Muscles and glands. Muscles ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಕೈಗೆ ಎಲ್ಲ muscles ಬೇಕು. Eyes ಅಲ್ಲಿ tears ಅಥವಾ smell. Those requires glands. Okay. These are the differences between voluntary action and involuntary action. Now we know what is the importance of nervous system, how it helps in performing functions like voluntary actions and involuntary actions, which is very much necessary for our survival. ಹೌದಾ? ನಾವು ವಾಲಂಟ್ರಿ ಆಕ್ಷನ್ಸ್ ನಾವೇನು ಕಲೀಲಿಲ್ಲ, ನಾವೇನೋ ತಿಳ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿಲ್ಲ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ವಿಲ್ ಬಿ ಸ್ಲೋ ಬ್ಯಾಕ್. ಅಂಡ್ ಇಫ್ ವಿ ಡೋಂಟ್, ಈಗ ಹಾಟ್ ಆಬ್ಜೆಕ್ಟ್ ಮುಟ್ಟಿ ನಾವು ಹಂಗೇ ಇದ್ರೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಕೈಯೆಲ್ಲ ಸುಟ್ಟೋಗುತ್ತೆ. We have to perform our functions at a particular speed and particular sequence. We know the sequence. Sensory neuron ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಹೋಗುತ್ತೆ, ಬ್ರೈನಿಗೆ ರೀಚ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ, again comes back to the motor neuron. It performs in a sequence. That's how nervous system functions. In tomorrow's class, we'll see chemical coordination, how coordination happens with the hormones, endocrine glands. Okay, thank you.